former Heisman Trophy winner and former Knicks point guard Charlie Ward.
The famous, the infamous Heisman Award-winning Charlie Ward.
One of the greatest college football players in the history of the game, Mr. Charlie Ward.
Win the Heisman, that's high as you can go.
The only guy that played NBA basketball to win a Heisman Trophy.
One thing I did appreciate is coaching you guys up, trying to do you guys better. A lot of times we miss out on opportunities because we think we should be somewhere else. So it's important that we all understand that we got to trust the process. It's a story about embracing the process of what success looks like to me, and I'm grateful that I was able to share my story, because a lot of times when I went out to talk and speak around the country, people asked me if I had a book, and so now I can share with them that I do have a book.
Charlie Ward has already done so much, and he ain't through yet. He is not through.
Thanks, Riley. Good afternoon. Come on now, good afternoon. I know you guys just got out of the cafeteria, right? Yeah, so you're probably a little sluggish. Most times after we eat, it's time to take a nap, right? But not in school. When you're in school, you're not supposed to be taking naps after you eat. It's supposed to energize you, I thought. But it was great. I'm grateful to be here. Got an opportunity to meet some of you all in the cafeteria, 9th and 10th grade, right? All right. But the King's Academy, what does the King's Academy mean to you? Can I get one volunteer to answer that question? What does the King's Academy mean to you? Anyone? All right. Yes, ma'am. So it's a place where you have friends and family. It's not just a school, which it is a school, but it's not just a school. It's a place where she feels comfortable having friends and family to be able to talk to, and that is what King's Academy means to her. Anyone else? Let me get a guy. I'd like to get someone who's over here talking. All right there. Christ is King. That is the slogan. And that's what it means to him. I want to just talk a little bit about what do you think your purpose is for being here on earth? Anyone? Someone in the stands. What is your purpose, your one purpose for being here on earth? All right, up there in the top. Say it again. To glorify Jesus. And that is accurate. Let me just give you this scripture. It says in Genesis 1:27, it says, and God created man, who is that? Us, in his own image. Whose image? In the image of God created him. Male and female. Who is male and female? That's us. So God created us to be like who? Him. When we talk about an image, God created us to look like him. That's our one purpose in life. Our one purpose in life is to be like our Creator. I mean, we go through a lot of other phases and different things, but when it's all said and done, we were created in the image of God. And that was to look like him. And so all he's asking us is to be an ambassador for his kingdom. What does an ambassador mean? What does an ambassador mean? Anyone? Okay, quarterback. Someone that shows people that's right. That's correct. They're representative. They are representative of whatever it is. So for you guys who attend the King's Academy, you are a representative of the King's Academy. You're a representative of your last name. So when you go out and you do great things, who are you representing? You're representing yourself, and you're representing everything else that you're attached to. Your parents, your siblings, your family, your school. So our one purpose in life is to live a life that pleases God. That's our ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to please God in everything that we do and say. Is that an easy thing to do? No, it's not. Why? Why is it not easy to do? We're sinners. And we have great influences in our life. Adam and Eve, you take that for instance. There's something that came along and told them that it was okay to eat from the garden. But what did the Creator tell them not to do? Not to eat from the garden. So that's what makes it tough for us when we talk about being an ambassador for Christ. It makes it tough because we have an opponent. How many student athletes we have in here? You play on a team. When you go out to compete against someone else, their goal is to do what? Their goal is to win too. So they prepare themselves for that to happen. And when you talk about being a Christian, being an ambassador for Christ, the opponent has done the same thing. He's prepared himself to take you down. And so we have to understand and know we got to be prepared by allowing ourselves to be surrounded by the Word of God, to dig into the Word of God so that we can have an effective life for Christ. When we talk about having an effective life for Christ, I talk about 3 P's. The first P is preparation. Everything that happens in our life is part of God's plan. He is preparing us for something. What is that something? At the time, I do not know. When I was a freshman in college, I was recruited to Florida State to play quarterback. However, my freshman year, I ended up winning the punting job. I went to Florida State to play what position again? Quarterback. No disrespect, I talked to the punter the last session, but I didn't go to school to be the punter. I went to school to be the quarterback. How many of y'all know that there's a big difference between the quarterback and the punter? So I went to school to be the quarterback. However, I ended up being the punter. My plan when I went to school was to be the what? But God's plan was for me to be the punter my first year in school. It was very discouraging because I didn't go to school to be the punter, even though God had prepared me for that opportunity because I was the punter in high school. While I was punting in high school, I didn't know that I would be punting in college, but God had prepared me for that. And so my plan was derailed right off the jump. How many of you all had plans made and then something all of a sudden comes along by the name of COVID and derails it? Let's take the whole spring sports, all the spring sports. Some of you all may not even got into your sport, and some of you may be in a couple games in, then all of a sudden it got shut down. And we were all kind of in the same boat. And still, some things are not functioning at a high level or going off the way we thought it would. So our plans can be derailed at any time. But just understand and know that God's preparing you for something. You don't know what it is at that time when you're going through it, but He's definitely preparing you for something. And I know over the course of the time since COVID, I've learned how to Zoom. Y'all like, man, you just learned how to Zoom? Yes. I've gotten efficient in being a good Zoom guy. Learn a little bit more about the computer. Those things you guys probably already know and understand. But it was new to me that I could actually talk to somebody, do interviews, speak to people at home, which I kind of enjoy. Because that means you don't have to go very far to be able to talk to people. But that was my plan. My plan was to be a quarterback. Freshman year, God said, no, you're going to be the punter. I eventually went on to play quarterback. But during that time, I had to learn that God's plan, or where I was at that time, God had a bigger plan. Because after my true freshman year, 4 years later, I was able to have options. And those two options were, I could either play professional football or professional basketball. And as Mr. Riley said, I also got drafted in Major League Baseball. But let me just go back. If I would have played basketball my true freshman year, like I wanted to, when I became a senior, I graduated in 5 years. When I became a senior, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to play basketball because you only get 4 years to compete in high school and in college. And so I would have eliminated my option or opportunity for me to play in the NBA. So sometimes when we're going through difficult times or we feel like God has a different plan for our life or He's messing up our plans, just trust that He has the right plan for your life. Because I was able to have options my senior year to be able to play professional football or professional basketball. I'm going to share this scripture with you. We can make our own plans, these scriptures. We can make our own plans, but the Lord gives us the answer. Who gives us the answer? Who gives us the answer? The Lord gives us the answer. So we can make our plans, everything be written down. I know we have a lot of people who are goal-oriented, and you have your plans all written out. But we got to make sure that we understand and know that the Lord is the one that gives us the right answer. Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your actions to the Lord, to the who? And your plans will succeed. We write our plans down and we go about our own merry way and say, man, this is what I want. But who makes our plans successful? Who? The Lord makes our plans successful. So we need to ask Him through prayer, Lord, what is it that you desire for me? Help me to accept the things that come my way. Proverbs 16:9 says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. When you hear that scripture, what does it say to you? What does it mean to you? We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. Anyone? Someone help me out. You got me? All right. Exactly. We can make our own plans, but God is the one that determines what ends up happening, and we have to accept it. Proverbs 19:21 says, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. So when it's all said and done, we can make our own plans, but whatever happens in our lives, God's preparing us for His purpose. The last two P's, we're going to talk about being on a team. One team with many functions. As you've noted to me that a lot of you guys are on a team. And when you're a part of a team, the coach gives us all different roles. I've been a part of a team, many teams, and I've been in a lot of different roles that I've had to accept. I've been the guy who's been asked to sit on the bench because it's not your time to play. I've been the guy to compete and win the backup job. And I've also been the guy who's earned a starting spot. And I've played all the different roles. And how many of you all like sitting on the bench watching your teammates compete? When you've practiced all week to get prepared for the game and you know that you're not going to play. That's not a fun job to have. But guess what? Someone has to do it. If coach asks you to be that guy or lady, then that's what you have to do. You have to prepare yourself to be ready to play, but you also have to prepare whomever's getting an opportunity to play. And you have to be a great teammate about it. That is not an easy role. But you're doing your job at that given time. 1 Corinthians 12 talks about one body with many members that perform different functions within that body. The second P I would like to talk about is perseverance. How many of y'all in here have been, that's had some form of adversity? Raise your hand. For the ones who don't have your hands raised, you need to be asking the Lord for forgiveness. Why? Say it again. Exactly. We have all been through some form of adversity. But if we're part of a team and a part of a group, God has given you the adversity not just for yourself, but it's for you to be able to help someone else. I had a knee injury in high school. All I wanted in the 9th grade, all I wanted to do was be an athlete. That was it. School was secondary. I went to school just so I could be an athlete. I got my grades just so I can be an athlete. But one day, that got removed from me through a knee injury. My 9th grade year. But God showed me that there is something bigger in life than just sports, because He removed the thing that I admired the most. And so I had to go through a tough time, persevere through that situation. But I thought at the time that I was not going to be able to obtain the goals that I set out for myself. But I got through it. I healed up, got an opportunity to play my junior and senior year, and ended up getting a scholarship. But 4 years later, or 5 years later, I had an opportunity to help someone else persevere through tough times. There's a guy by the name of Warwick Dunn. How many of y'all know who Warwick Dunn is? Well, Warwick, those who know, and if you don't know Warwick, you should Google him. Warwick lost his mom. His mom got killed while she was working a second job to help take care of his family. In an instant, if you can put yourself in Warwick's shoes, his mom was taken from him. There was no dad involved. So he became the elder of his siblings. So he had to take care of his siblings. And so Warwick after he graduated, he got an opportunity to come to Florida State, and I was Warwick's roommate. And during that time, I was there to help listen to him, help guide him through all the necessary things to prepare for college and get ready for college. And I was able to help Warwick during that time persevere through tough times, not to give up. Warwick went on to have a great career in the NFL. And he made a conscious decision to start a foundation that was going to help single moms with a down payment to get a home. One of those guys, one of those families, moms that he helped, was a guy by the name of Deshaun Watson. How many of y'all know who Deshaun Watson is? Deshaun Watson, of course, those who know him, he's the quarterback for the Houston Texans. Now, when Deshaun got drafted, his first season, or first year, they had a big hurricane in Houston. And there were a lot of people who lost their homes. There were some that lost lives. But the first check that Deshaun Watson was receiving, he split his check 3 ways for 3 cafeteria workers to help them get back on their feet. And I share that because when we talk about perseverance, when you're going through something, God is saying, man, if you can just not give up, I can use you to help someone else. And that someone else can help someone else. So while you're going through your tough times, don't give up. Find a way to persevere through, because God's going to use that to be able to help someone else. The last P is patience. How many people in here like to wait on something? We don't like to wait. I don't like to wait. If there's something that I don't know, sometimes I don't like to go digging for it. You all have an advantage now. When I was your age, we had to go to encyclopedias to find information. Y'all probably don't know what an encyclopedia looked like. Y'all can just go to Google or some form of information at your fingertip to get whatever it is that you're desiring. But being patient sometimes is not a bad thing, because God is saying, yes, I know that's what you want, but not yet. Not yet. My rookie year, when we speak of not yet, my rookie year in the NBA, I got an opportunity to play 44 minutes. How many minutes is in an NBA game? 48 minutes is in an NBA game. So my rookie year, and I'm talking about a whole season, I didn't get an opportunity to play 1 game for the whole year. Then follow that up, while I was waiting, I put time in and worked with a guy by the name of Coach Jeff Van Gundy that entire year to help with my skill development and those types of things. Then the next season comes around, we get a new coach. The new coach comes in and says, I don't think you are ready to play. To me, as a competitor who put in a lot of time and waited my time for 1 year, God was using that coach to motivate me and help me and prepare me for the success that he had for me. Did I have a bad attitude? Do you think I had a bad attitude? Yes, I did. But a bad attitude is not going to get me the thing that I wanted. So I had to continue to work. I went back into the gym with Coach Jeff Van Gundy, continued to work on my skills. So when my opportunity came, I was ready. So for 1.5 years, God told me and showed me that it is not your time yet. That coach was removed halfway through the season. And the guy that got the job, they gave the head coaching job to, was a guy by the name of Jeff Van Gundy. Who do you think Coach Jeff Van Gundy gave an opportunity to be in the rotation? Who? Yes. He gave me an opportunity to be in rotation, and then Coach Van Gundy was one of the guys who helped my NBA career for 11 years, and then afterwards as a coach. So I want to share that with you, because sometimes right now, when we think about the things that we want, the feelings that we go through. Sometimes God is telling us, not yet. Let's talk about sex. God has ordained that, yes, and it is good. That's what he said. But he says, not yet until when? Until when? Until when? Yes, that is his purpose. Until marriage. I just want to help you guys, because when it's all said and done, I know for myself, when I was coming up in your age, those were the challenges, because we had feelings and we want to act upon those feelings. And we knew the ramifications if something did happen. And then we went and tried to cover it up because of what the world said is okay. Birth control, condoms, whatever it may be. But God has said in his word, there's Adam, there's Eve. There's a time for that. And it is a beautiful gift. But that gift, and I will bless it in a consummation of what? Marriage. But when we go outside of that, there are a lot of problems that happen, challenges we have to go through. But guess what? God can use those to help someone else as well. And that's why I am here to share with you that it's okay to wait. I didn't make it until I got my wife. I didn't, because I got caught up into the pressures of life. The people around me. And so I just want to encourage you all, as you continue to walk out your faith, find people that are like-minded, that have one goal, one purpose, on the same team, have the same desires as you to please God in everything they do and say. Because when you start talking to the opponents and giving them their secrets, how many of y'all go out in a competition and you go and tell your opponents, this is the play that we're running. This is who's getting the ball. How many of y'all do that? Not very many people do that, if any, because you're trying to win. So if you're walking with the Lord, you don't need to go and start dibbling and dabbling and hearing and listening to the worldly standard. And so I just want to encourage you all during this time, one purpose, many functions. The God's preparing you for greatness. He wants you to persevere and not give up. And he wants you to be patient and wait on the things that he has for you. Does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions, I'll answer to the best of my ability and knowledge.
So guys, if you guys want, we got 10 minutes now. You guys can ask any questions you like for Charlie. I'll start off and ask, because we've got a lot of athletes, we've got guys thinking of college coming up. What made you choose FSU over other schools? What was God speaking to you about, your college decision?
My college decision was centered around, of course, Florida State is a great university. I grew up in Thomasville, which was about 45 minutes from Tallahassee. So I kind of knew of Coach Bowden and his belief and his Christian values. And so just his integrity as a coach. Also, I wanted family and friends to be able to have an opportunity to watch me play, and that was an opportunity. The other school that was recruiting me was University of Georgia, and Coach Dooley, who's another legendary coach, Vince Dooley. But I wanted to play basketball, and Coach Dooley didn't have that on his side. Coach Bowden allowed Brad Johnson to play basketball and football, and so that's one of the reasons why I chose Florida State.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else has questions? Raise your hand if anybody want to ask a question. All right. Say it out loud. I'll repeat it. Did you ever get dunked on by Michael Jordan?
I did.
All right, let's take us through that scenario. Walk us through. Hold on, this story, I heard this story already. Walk us through getting dunked on by Michael Jordan. You also played against LeBron when he was younger, so you can talk about maybe who's
yes,
the true GOAT.
I've had the opportunity to play against some of the guys that you all kind of admire or you've seen. Michael Jordan being one. How many of y'all would like to say you got dunked on by Michael Jordan at your job? Yes, we all would like to have that. I'm a competitor, and playing for the Knicks at that time, there was no layup rule. And so Michael Jordan was on the baseline, he was driving baseline, and I was coming to just try to contest the shot. And I actually got there a little bit late. So when you're late on the baseline and you get a guy like Michael Jordan or any guy in the NBA at that time or this time, you may get dunked on. And so I got dunked on, and I got a big fat lip because he hit me with his elbow. That's how bad it was. But before that, I did block his shot at the rim. So
Yeah.
there was some good and some bad in that deal. But it was fun, though.
Good question. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, excellent question. Where is it? Coming.
You played with Omari Stoudemire?
No, I didn't play with him. I played against him, though.
Did you get dunked on him too?
No, I didn't get dunked on by Amari.
All right, Zakai, go ahead. So Zakai plays two sports also. What made you choose basketball over football?
Well, it really came down to job opportunity. When I went through the process of the NBA and the NFL process, I wasn't 100% committed to either, but I definitely wasn't 100% committed to the NFL because they had given me like a third or fourth round draft grade, and I just made the bold proclamation that if I didn't get drafted in the first round of the NFL, that I would consider my other options, which, of course, that's a no-no and a bold proclamation. And it's a great life lesson, and I tell people all the time, is when you make a decision, whatever that decision is, you have to be willing to live with the consequences. And so I made a decision to make that statement because I knew that if that there was a possibility that I wouldn't get drafted in NFL. And so when I made that statement, there was that possibility. And then I prayed and asked God to please close the door and open a door. And when the NFL draft came around and I didn't get drafted at all, that was just God's way of telling me that He had closed the door. And then I went and put all my time and energy to get prepared and ready for the NBA process, the NBA combines. And so I just encourage you all, when you make a decision, whatever that decision is, I don't care what it is, you have to be willing to live the consequences of that decision. And I did. I lived with the consequences of not being drafted, and God found another avenue for me.
Cool. Anybody else? So the world, yeah. Coach.
Did you find that there was a good Christian community with professional athletes in the NBA and whatnot?
Actually, We did. My wife and I, we became a part of a group that was with the NFL as well. It was Christian Athletes United for Spiritual Empowerment, which was CAUSE. And that was like Reggie White, Troy Vincent, Michael Barrow. There's quite a few NFL guys that were a part of that. And then Tanja and I, we brought a group of NBA players and their wives into the mix. And we used to have conferences like once a year during the summer. And so that was a great opportunity for us to kind of sit down and talk through, because a lot of times our lives were parallel to each other. And, you know, the issues that we had, whether it was in our marriage, whether in our personal lives, sometimes people from the outside may judge us because they feel like, well, they can't really relate or understand. But the guys and the ladies that were a part of our group, you know, they would give us great guidance, and we would be able to relate to one another. And so that was a group that still exists, not exists today, but the relationships exist, even though that's been about 20 years, you know, ago.
Awesome. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir. Go ahead and shout it out, and I'll repeat it. Nice question. Who's the best basketball player you've played with or against?
Man, of course, when you play enough sports, you're going to have great players. And so, I played with Patrick Ewing, John Starks, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston. I played with Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady. I played with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. And so I played with a lot of great players that you probably know. And then I played against guys like Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, Mark Jackson, John Stockton. Y'all probably don't know some of those names, but they were all great players, you know, during their time. But Tim Hardaway is another guy. But it was what it was, and it is what it is. But being a competitor, those names are just names. You compete at a high level, and you just enjoy the experience.
So go ahead. You have a question? All right. Coming up.
Do your kids play any sports? And if they do, did they ever have to worry about being held to a certain level or have a certain people thought of them differently because they were your kids?
That's a very good question. That's one of the things that I don't put any pressure on my kids to be great athletes or athletes. If they're willing to work and do it, I'll help them. And if I'm able to help assist in whatever area. But the challenge that they face, and I have a son that's a walk-on at Florida State, and we all kind of go through this, you know, where there's always that pressure. He's at Florida State, and everyone kind of expects him to be like me. That never comes from my lips. What comes from me is I want you to have your own experience, one, and that's for all my kids, have your own experience. Two, do the things that's going to make you great: discipline, work ethic, being responsible, being accountable, those life lessons that we're going to learn. And yes, there's the pressures on them to try to live up to, but I let them know that that's not their deal. They got to be the best that they can be. And if they're not the top player, because I was able to make it to the top, that's not what I'm asking them to be. All I'm asking them to be is the best that they can be. And so they do have the pressures from others, but I don't see it being any different than in someone else whose parents may be a CEO of a company and they're well known, and then the kids are trying to live up to their parent status and all those types of things. I just want to encourage, and that may be some of you all in here, having to try to live up to someone else's expectation. I say set your own expectation to be the best that you can be, and whatever happens after that, you just live with the results. But the thing that you want to make sure, and I share this with my kids, is you don't want to live with regrets. That you couldn't be the best that you can be because you were trying to live up to someone else's expectations. Your expectations should be high to be the best and do the best that you can. And if it's not good enough to rise to the top, that's part of God's plan for your life. But during that time, you've gained some valuable experiences to be able to help you be the best that you can be long term.
Thanks so much. Give a big round of applause for Charlie.